An ordinary staff member was unexpectedly reborn into the mysterious and vast cultivation world, becoming a member of the Golden Elixir family. The story starts from the Tianyuan Immortal cultivation realm in Cangli Island in the North Sea, marking the rise of a legendary family. Q Group 114-620-2330 keywords of the novel. The Immortal cultivation family cannot float without pop-ups. The Immortal cultivation family cannot float. Download the full text. The Immortal cultivation family cannot float. Read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Cangli Youdao. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Cangli Youdao, Tianyuan Realm, North Sea, Northeast Luoyuan Islands. The Luoyuan Islands are composed of over 300 islands of all sizes and many small islands. The largest island among them is only 130 li long and 110 li wide, while the smallest island is only 1 li long and wide, and the length and width of the island are less than 1 li. There are many first-order monster beasts living in the inner sea of the archipelago, and sometimes there are also second-order monster beasts appearing, while there are more powerful third-order monster beasts active in the outer sea. There is a medium-sized island in the eastern part of the Luoyuan Islands, which is 130 miles long from east to west, 110 miles wide from north to south, and only 300 zhang high. It is high in the middle and low in the surrounding areas. Name: Cangli. The island is shrouded in clouds and mist, with abundant spiritual energy. There are countless lakes, ponds, and magical beasts scattered throughout, resembling a fairyland on earth. There is a family of cultivators on the island, known as the Ling family. The Ling family of Cangli was founded more than 500 years ago by a generation of Jindan Ling Tai, and has been passed down for several generations. After more than 500 years of development, the Ling family of Cangli now has over 800,000 ordinary people, including 1 Jindan and 12 foundation building cultivators, as well as over 800 children during the Qi cultivation period. It is precisely because of such strong strength that the Cangli Ling clan can maintain its vast foundation and resist the Qian clan court on Fufeng Island to the west, becoming one of the two dominant groups in the Luoyuan Islands. The cultivators of the Ling family in Cangli live on the Qingsang mountain in the central part of the island. As for the ordinary people, 30% live in the plain areas around Cangli Island, while the other 70% live on some nearby islands with sparse spiritual energy. Qingsang Mountain occupies half of the area of Cangli Island, with 10 small spiritual veins on it. The higher up the mountain, the stronger the spiritual energy becomes. From top to bottom, the summit is the only place where Ling Chuyun, the Jindan Immortal of Cangli, lives. Going further down, also known as the mountaintop, are the elders of the Ling family who built foundations, as well as their direct relatives. Of course, Elder Zhuji has the right to let any Ling's children live on the Qingsang mountain, but generally, they will not do so. The central part of Qingsang mountain is a circle of buildings, with scattered attics and halls. In some special places, there are even elders guarding the foundation, and ordinary people are not allowed to enter. The vast area from the middle down to the foot of the mountain is the place where over 800 children of the Ling family lived during their Qi cultivation period. Of course, the law of the jungle also exists within the Ling family of Cangli. The higher the cultivation level and the harder the relationship, the closer the children of the Qi cultivation period live to the middle. And those children with low strength and no deep connections during the Qi cultivation period can only live at the foot of the mountain. At the beginning, there was a broad bond of benevolence, virtue, and filial piety. They were always determined to speak with kindness and ease, fearless of ascending to the blue sky. This was the 20th generation of the founder of the Ling family in Cangli, Ling Tai, for future generations. Generation is an honor in the Ling family of Cangli, and not every descendant of the Ling family can have a corresponding character added to their name. According to the rules of the Ling family in Cangli, only when the cultivation has reached the foundation building period, can characters of the same generation be added to the name. Then, the foundation building period cultivators of the same generation will be sorted according to their age. In addition to the ability to add corresponding characters to the name of the founder, the direct and third generation collateral relatives of these founder elders can also enjoy this honor. If this founding elder unfortunately falls, then the collateral descendants and the direct descendants after 5 generations will no longer enjoy this privilege. Of course, the Ling family of Cangli often allows this privilege to be passed down for several generations in recognition of some founding elders who have made contributions to the family. If a new founder period cultivator appears among the descendants of the fallen founder, it will be a new round of honor continuation. As for those children who live below the central part of Qingsong Mountain during their qi cultivation period, they do not enjoy this honor. That is to say, they have a hierarchical division, but cannot add corresponding characters in their names unless they are promoted to the foundation period. It can be considered that this is the difference between legitimate and collateral lineages, the only difference being that legitimate lineages can degenerate into collateral lineages, and collateral lineages can also be promoted to legitimate lineages. So, based on the names of the descendants of the Ling family in Cangli, one can roughly determine his position in the Ling family and whether he has a great backing. The reason why the Ling family of Cangli did this is also because they were forced and helpless. The Ling family has many people, and there are not enough characters in the cultivation world. They can only use this method to avoid too many duplicate names. At the top of Qingsong Mountain, by the edge of Suiyu Pool, a man wearing white clothes with black hair tied up behind him was sitting cross-legged on a large blue stone. In the realm of cultivation, before the age of 12, he is a child with a total horn, and after the age of 12, he begins to accumulate hair. Men reach adulthood at the age of 20 and need to be crowned by their elders. Family and friends will come to watch, also known as the coronation ceremony. Women also reach adulthood at the age of 20 and need to perform the hairpin ceremony. Ordinary people also have such etiquette, but there are slight differences in age. The spiritual energy near Tsueyu Lake was pulled and hovered around the man's body, forming a visible halo mist. He furrowed his brow and a thin layer of sweat seeped out of his forehead, appearing very anxious. A gentle breeze blowing from afar hit the leaves, causing them to shake and make a rustling sound. They landed on the emerald green surface of the pond, and ripples immediately formed on the water surface. The shadows of trees, grass, stones, and people swayed inside, like a shattered mirror. After a while, a long sigh rang out. "Hey, it failed again. I saw this son, who was 5 feet and a half tall, with a face like a crown of jade, an eye like a bright star, and 10 slender fingers. Coupled with his white clothes and ethereal demeanor, he was truly one of the few young men in the world. The young man's name is Ling Youdao, a descendant of the Yu generation of the Ling family in Cangli. He has just turned 18 years old this year and has not yet reached adulthood to receive a coronavirus. Ling Youdao is not an ordinary person, but a reborn soul from Earth. Compared to his peers, he has more than 30 years of memories. Although memories from previous lives may not be useful in this world of cultivation, the methods, experiences, and principles of dealing with people are things that can be used in any world. There is no law in this world, but a place where strength is paramount. The strong are the reason, while the weak can only be appointed. He is the 3 spiritual roots of water, wood, and fire, among which the fire's spiritual root is the best, and his qualifications can only be considered moderate. Even in small families like the Ling family in Cangli, there are still many children with stronger qualifications than him. Step by step backward, step by step backward. It is precisely because of this sense of urgency that for 8 years, he dared not waste every minute, every second, and spent his leisure time on cultivation. He barely reached the 6th level of qi cultivation at the age of 18, and his cultivation speed far exceeded that of other 3 spiritual roots cultivators. He has already worked so hard, but there is still a certain gap compared to the dual spiritual roots, geniuses, in the Ling family. For example, the dual spiritual root cultivator was able to easily overcome the bottleneck in the later stage of qi cultivation, but he tried 3 times but still couldn't break through. This is not because he didn't work hard enough, but because of the same cultivation time. The cultivation effect of the double spirit root cultivator is twice that of the 3 spirit root cultivator, and the double spirit root cultivator has few bottlenecks during the qi cultivation period. Similarly, within the same cultivation time, the cultivation effect of the 4 spiritual roots cultivator is twice that of the 5 spiritual roots cultivator. As a result, for every decrease in spiritual roots, the cultivation effect doubles. In this way, the cultivation effect of a single spiritual root cultivator is 16 times that of a 5 spiritual root cultivator. Of course, the effectiveness of cultivation is not only influenced by the spiritual roots of the cultivator, but also by external factors such as the concentration of spiritual energy in the cultivation environment, whether to take auxiliary cultivation pills, spiritual objects, and so on. But it cannot be denied that cultivators with fewer spiritual roots have a higher starting point and are more favored by various cultivation forces. Swinging the sword and slaying the witch, we are not the Holy Mother. Ordinary sect group statue, the little character was unexpectedly reborn into the world of cultivation and became an apprentice of the Golden Core cultivator of the Shinchao sect. The story begins in Haizhou, one of the 9 provinces in the world, and it is a journey of the rise of a cultivation sect. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Ling's 7 Houses. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Ling's 7 Houses. Ling Youdao looked at the empty storage bag and thought to himself, indeed, cultivating immortality is still about resources. Without resources, don't talk about anything. Hang the storage bag back at your waist and jump up from the big blue stone. This time, the realm is suppressed to a lower level, with a 1-time dry ticket, so that you don't have to worry about resources for 6 months and can focus on practicing on the island. Immediately thinking of the people guarding the mountain, he tugged at his hair with a headache. If you want to leave the island, you have to beg the old man. I will first lower my cultivation level to the 4th level of qi cultivation. The old man is very picky, and if he finds out, it won't be good. Ling Youdao's soul comes from the earth world after all, and he naturally feels a sense of crisis when facing this unfamiliar world, so he has been hiding his cultivation to increase his safety. I saw him pinching the formula with both hands and using a secret technique. The cultivation level of qi cultivation in the 6th level quickly dropped to the 5th level, and in no time, it dropped to the 4th level. After feeling his own breath, he nodded in satisfaction. The secret technique used by Ling Youdao is called breath transformation technique, which he obtained from a wandering cultivator who blocked the way and robbed him on his first trip to the island. After using this secret technique, one can change their cultivation aura. Even a cultivator who has reached a higher level cannot see any suspicion without taking action. Ling Youdao relied on his breath-changing technique to do many bad things, calling it doing justice for the heavens. He chuckled and said, "Let's go find the old man." The old man, in his mouth, is his grandfather, the 7th elder of the Ling family in Cangli, and Ling Yuansheng, who had a cultivation in the middle period of building a foundation. Ling Yuansheng's parents and ancestors were both ordinary mortals. At the age of 10, he was diagnosed with the fire with double spirit roots and possessed the ability to cultivate immortality, allowing him to break away from the mundane world and come to Qingsong Mountain to cultivate immortality. Because his ancestors were all doctors, he has been interested in medicinal herbs since childhood. In his spare time of regular cultivation, he would study the pharmacology of the elixir. After unremitting efforts, he finally became a 2nd-level alchemist before the age of 50. Later, he received the attention of the family's senior management and was given a foundation-building pill. He successfully built his foundation at the age of 55 with that foundation pill. His original name was Ling Sheng, and after building the foundation, he changed his name to Ling Yuansheng. He ranked 5th in the Yuan generation and established the 7th house of the Ling family in Cangli. The current legitimate lineage of the Cangli Ling family consists of 7 branches, with Changfang being the most powerful, having 3 foundation building cultivators. The Jindan Immortal at the top of Qingsong Mountain also belongs to Changfang. Next is Sanfang, with 3 foundation building monks, followed by Erfang, with 2 foundation building monks. The remaining 4 rooms cannot be compared to the first 3 rooms, each with only 1 foundation builder. However, the 4 rooms, 5 rooms, and 6 rooms were all passed down by the elderly foundation building cultivators, so both in terms of incense and overall strength, they are stronger than the 7 rooms that have only been established for decades. The population of the 7 houses was sparse, and Ling Yuan had many children, but only 4 sons had spiritual roots. The eldest son Ling Dingxiong, the second son Ling Dingshan, the third son Ling Dingyuan, and the 4th son Ling Dingfang. Among them, Ling Dingxiong had a son named Ling Yuwei. Ling Dingshan was obsessed with cultivation but did not marry. Ling Dingyuan had a daughter named Ling Yuqian, and Ling Youdao was the only son of Ling Dingfang. Ling Yuancheng's 4 sons still have 3 sons left. When Ling Youdao was 2 years old, Ling Dingfang and his wife Wang Yunhui received a family mission and were killed by members of the Fufeng Qian family on their way back to Cangli Island. Since then, Ling Youdao has been living with Ling Yuancheng. He is eloquent and has won the favor of Ling Yuancheng. Of course, Ling Yuan had many affairs during his lifetime, and his main caregiver was his cousin Ling Yuqian. When he was 10 years old, it was discovered that he had the 3 spiritual roots of water, wood, and fire. Ling Yuan was overjoyed and brought him with him, intending to pass on his lifelong alchemy skills to him. Unfortunately, Ling Youdao was completely focused on cultivation and had not yet refined a batch of pills, which really made Ling Yuan angry. Ling Youdao returned to the 7-room courtyard first, searched inside and out, and found that Ling Yuancheng was not here. The old man must be in the pharmacy. As he spoke, he rushed out of the 7-room courtyard and ran towards the medicine house at the foot of the mountain. The medicine house is built in the area above the middle of Qingsong Mountain and below the mountaintop, where there is a strong spiritual energy and many spiritual medicines are planted. Ling Youdao, dressed in white, used his lightness spell and quickly descended along the stone steps that had been carved out in the woods. Surrounded by towering trees, their crowns connect to block the sunlight, and there are gusts of fresh breeze blowing from the sea, causing the temperature in the mountains to be several degrees lower than outside. These sea breezes, carrying moisture, blow from all sides and converge on Qingsong Mountain. The sunlight falling from the gaps in the leaves hits the water droplets, and the entire forest shines brightly. During the journey, there is an indescribable coolness and comfort. 15 minutes later, Ling Youdao came to the outside of the Lingyao garden. The Ling family's children who guarded the garden knew him and let him in directly. I saw a thatched cottage located in the center of the spiritual medicine garden, with a curved stone path running through the entire garden, connecting the front door of the cottage. Looking for the gravel path and smelling the waves of medicinal fragrance coming from both sides, Ling Youdao quickly arrived at the main entrance of the thatched cottage. The entire thatched cottage is built with thatch and bamboo, and there is a fence surrounded by bamboo. An inconspicuous ancient wooden plaque hangs directly above the bamboo door. Shangshu. Yaolu. Don't be fooled by the looseness of this medicine house. It feels like the wind blows and it collapses, but it's actually quite powerful. The entire spiritual medicine garden is shrouded in a second-order top-notch array, and the eye of the array is this inconspicuous medicine house. Ling Youdao dare not act recklessly. After all, the large formation in the spirit medicine garden is not for fun. A slight mistake could potentially kill him. My grandson has a way of asking to see my grandfather. He bowed respectfully towards the bamboo door of the medicine house and said. As soon as he finished speaking, he could only hear a deep voice coming from within, Youdao, come in. Yes. Ling Youdao pushed open the bamboo door, and a refreshing breeze with a medicinal fragrance blew out from inside, leaving him feeling refreshed all over. He entered and then turned around to push the bamboo door back. There are several thatched cottages at the deepest part of the medicine house, with a large courtyard in the middle. There is a pool of water in the middle of the courtyard, and in the center of the pool is a pavilion made of thatch. Ling Youdao arrived at the small bridge outside the pavilion and saw an ancient wooden plaque hanging on it, which read, Medicine Fragrance Pavilion. I saw a slim figure sitting on a stone stool in the Medicine Fragrance Pavilion. This person is Ling Yuansheng, the seventh elder of the Ling family in Cangli and the biological grandfather of Ling Youdao. My grandson has met my grandfather. Ling Yuansheng frowned and said, Why are you still there? Wait for me to personally greet you. Ling Youdao scratched his head and chuckled, How dare my grandson? Immediately, he ran into the Medicine Fragrance Pavilion like a well-behaved baby. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Acting on Behalf of Heaven. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Acting on Behalf of Heaven. Ling Youdao came behind Ling Yuansheng, placed his hands on his shoulders, and squeezed the old man's shoulders with both hands. Humph, you still have some conscience, kid. Hee, grandson, thank you very much for grandpa's praise. Stop it. The grandson is telling the truth. Everyone in the whole family knows that grandpa rarely praises others. It is fortunate for the grandson to receive grandpa's praise. Alright, stop flattering grandpa anymore. Did you come up with an island again? Grandpa is indeed a clever strategist. Before your grandson can say anything, you already know what his grandson is thinking. Ling Yuansheng looked proud and thought to himself, You've only been eating salt for a few years. How dare you play tricks in front of me? But he said, No way. Grandpa. My good grandfather, my grandson wants to go to Red Shrimp Island to experience and gain some knowledge. Ling Yuansheng waved his hands and said, You've only been practicing qi for 4 layers. There are so many monsters in the sea that you can deal with. Stay on the island obediently, and when you break through to the later stage of qi cultivation, you can leave the island as you want. Grandpa will definitely not care about you. Upon hearing this, Ling Youdao's face turned sideways and he said, Old man, do you mean that even if I become an adult and gain a crown, I still cannot leave the island until I reach the later stage of qi cultivation? Ling Yuansheng turned his head to look at his grandson seriously, and after a while, he smiled and said, You have a way. You really have a clever plan. Before grandpa can speak, you already know what grandpa is thinking. The old man has learned well. Ling Youdao is not a loser, and Ling Yuansheng does indeed dote on this young grandson. After a series of ups and downs, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Ling Yuansheng said helplessly, Okay, I'm afraid of you. The conversation quickly changed, however, you only practiced 4 layers of qi. It's too dangerous to leave the island. Grandpa, don't worry. Ling Youdao smiled and said, Grandpa, don't worry about this. My grandson is already fully prepared. Besides, it's not his first time going out. He rolled his eyes and pulled Ling Yuansheng's arm, Grandpa, if you don't trust your grandson, you can give him some second-order talismans. Upon hearing this, Ling Yuansheng almost spewed out a mouthful of old blood. You're like a cabbage on the street when you're a second-level talisman. Ling Youdao shrugged nonchalantly and said, Then you can't just watch your grandson go out and be bullied. If your grandson accidentally dies outside, have mercy on my father and mother. Hey, alright, this is a second-level lower-grade gold shield talisman. Go away quickly. Ling Yuansheng, with a big head, took out a talisman and handed it to Ling Youdao, then waved his hands repeatedly, signaling that Ling Youdao should leave quickly. Ling Youdao held the golden shield talisman and chuckled, Thank you, Grandpa. He was afraid that his grandfather would turn back, so he quickly ran out of the medicine house and then ran out of the spiritual medicine garden. Seeing this, Ling Yuansheng couldn't help but smile bitterly and say, You little slippery guy. Ling Youdao left the Lingyao garden and immediately cast his lightness spell, quickly descending the mountain. Passing through the architectural complex in the central part of Qingsong Mountain, one quickly arrived at a vast area below the central part of Qingsong Mountain. This is the place where the descendants of the Lingshire collateral lineage of Cangli lived during their qi cultivation period. Courtyards and spiritual fields were scattered throughout the entire area, appearing somewhat spacious. In half an hour, he arrived at the mountain gate located at the foot of Qingsong Mountain. Several descendants of the Ling family in the later stage of qi cultivation stepped forward to stop him, led by a middle-aged man wearing a white robe with a blue sea, island, and wave pattern embroidered on his right chest, and a long beard. The person said, according to clan rules, the children of the blue sea and half-waves are not allowed to leave the island without permission. Go back where you came from. On the right chest of the clothes worn by every Lingshire cultivator in Cangli, there is a circular blue sea embroidered, and within the blue sea, there is a yellow Cangli island embroidered. The blue sea is embroidered with white waves. The more waves there are, the higher the status in the Cangli Ling clan. Underage children are all half-waves, while adult children and cultivators who have not reached the foundation building period are all half-waves. If underage children reach the late stage of qi cultivation, they can also wear the blue sea wave in advance. Similarly, the elder who built the foundation is called the 2 waves of the blue sea, and the immortal Jindan is called the 3 waves of the blue sea. The underage children have low cultivation and have not yet delved into the world. They cannot understand the dangers of the human heart in the immortal world. In order to better protect them and prevent too many premature deaths. According to the regulations of the Ling family in Cangli, underage children are not allowed to leave the island without permission and must be accompanied by elders in the clan. There are only 2 ways for underage children to leave the island alone. One is to obtain the approval of the elder who built the foundation, and the other is to reach the later stage of qi cultivation. Ling Youdao was not angry either and smiled, saying, "My name is Ling Youdao. My grandfather is Ling Yuansheng, the 7th elder. His family has allowed me to leave Cangli Island for a few days." The leader cultivator was a bit confused. He had not been transferred back from Cangli Island for long and did not yet know the character Ling Youdao. A slightly chubby middle-aged man next to him whispered a few words in his ear, and the person finally realized. At this moment, a sword flew from Qingsong Mountain. Flying sword transmission. Several people were all shocked. The sword hovered in front of several people, projecting images of Ling Yuansheng. "I have seen Elder 7. I have allowed Youdao to leave the island." Yes. The image of Ling Yuansheng disappeared, and the sword flew in the direction of its arrival. The leader of the cultivator instantly smiled and said, "So it's the grandson of Elder 7. Since Elder 7 has already allowed it, you can do it yourself." There are many members of the Ling clan in Cangli, and if their peers were to be ranked first, they would have to be ranked 1 or 200. So not all of the fellow cultivators in the Cangli Ling family call each other brothers, only those who are close in relationship or blood ties will be called brothers. For example, there is a cousin Ling Yuwei and a cousin Ling Yuqian on top of Ling Youdao, and the 3 of them are arranged in rows of different sizes. The formation at the mountain gate opened a gap, and Ling Youdao arched his hand at several people before walking out. The gap slowly closed again, and someone puzzled, saying, "I don't know what Elder 7 thinks. How could he rest assured to let such a furry guy who has practiced 4 layers of qi leave the island? Elder 7 must have given him many life-saving talismans, otherwise he could have been released from the island." That's right. Ling Youdao first changed into a new outfit, then took out a paper crane and threw it into the air. The paper crane grew larger out of nowhere, and he jumped up. The paper crane flew towards the Red Shrimp Island in the northeast direction of Cangli Island. He only came out of the island for one purpose this time: his storage bag was empty, and he had to make some extra money. By the way, do justice for the heavens. To put it simply, it means luring others to rob oneself, then secretly attacking the other party and taking advantage of the opportunity to counterattack. This is not the first time he has done such a thing. He has basically thought of the route, location, and various unexpected situations. Over the years, he has shamelessly obtained many second-level talismans from Ling Yuansheng. As long as the one lured is not a foundation-building cultivator, he is confident in killing the other person and can safely escape even if it doesn't go well. Even if the opponent is a foundation-building cultivator, it is not a dead end for Ling Youdao. Besides, how could a grand foundation-building cultivator look up to him as a small 4-level cultivator? End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Anti-Killing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Anti-Killing. Red Shrimp Island is more than 500 miles away from Cangli Island and is a peripheral island of the Luoyuan archipelago. The surrounding cultivators during the Qi cultivation period used this island as a springboard to hunt and kill monsters in the open sea. Ling Youdao chose this island precisely because it was a self-cultivation market formed by the spontaneous gathering of scattered cultivators. There was no unified management, and incidents of killing and looting were common around the market, making it the most suitable place for him to act on his behalf. The speed of the paper crane was not fast, and it took half a day until it arrived at the city of Red Shrimp Island in the evening. The owner of Red Shrimp Island is a casual cultivator in the early stages of foundation construction, and the entire Red Shrimp Island is under his protection. The cultivators on the island need to pay regular protection fees. Ling Youdao handed over a lower-grade spirit stone before being put into the market by the gatekeeper. The neighborhood is not very large, there is only one street, and there is a large square at each end of the street. Passing through the square, you entered the street, which was lined with various shops selling talismans, elixirs, magical tools, formations, and more. Although sparrows are small, they have all 5 organs. The square at the end of the street has been divided into many small stalls, some of which have already been set up by Qi practitioners, while others are empty. These stalls and the shops on both sides of the street are not free, but they need to pay rent to the owner of Red Shrimp Island, who built the foundation in the early stages. Ling Youdao found an inn to stay at and is preparing to do justice for the heavens. Tomorrow, the next morning, the sun rose from the east, reflecting the horizon red. Ling Youdao left the inn and turned around all the shops in the neighborhood, which quickly caught the attention of a Qi training 6-level individual. That person followed behind him, he accelerated his speed, and that person also accelerated his speed, always maintaining a certain distance from him. Seeing this, Ling Youdao's mouth slightly curled up, revealing a wicked smile. There are indeed greedy people. His purpose was to lure the cultivators to rob him, so he paid extra attention to the situation behind him and knew from the beginning that he was being targeted. Ling Youdao made a few turns in the neighborhood, dispelling the concerns of the person behind him, and then hurriedly walked towards the entrance of the neighborhood. The 6th-level cultivator who followed immediately accelerated his pace and said, "That kid is wandering around the neighborhood. He must have bought something good to cover up." Seeing the speed of the person in front of him getting faster and faster, he had some doubts and said, "Shouldn't this kid notice me? It shouldn't be. Anyway, what if he finds me? He still can't escape from my 5-finger mountain." As soon as he left the market, Ling Youdao immediately flew towards Cangli Island on a paper crane, pretending to be running for his life quickly. The next moment, the scattered cultivator rushed out of the neighborhood market. I saw this person with a burly figure, muscular knots, and a scar on his face. The scarred man couldn't see Ling Youdao and sensed the lingering breath in the air, locking in the direction of his escape. He smiled proudly and said, "Humph, the prey that Scar has been interested in has never been able to escape." Immediately, he released a big bird, jumped onto its back, flapped its wings, and chased after Ling Youdao in the direction of his escape. The speed of the big bird was much faster than that of the paper crane. In no time, Scar caught up with Ling Youdao in the air of a primitive jungle on Red Shrimp Island. Seeing this, Ling Youdao was not in a hurry at all, but rather had an indescribable ease in his heart. Of course, he only dares to think in his heart and doesn't dare to show it on his face. Otherwise, if the Scar Man discovers it, he will inevitably become suspicious, and everything he has done before will be in vain. The paper crane immediately turned its direction and charged towards the primitive jungle below. Ling Youdao's paper cranes are not as many as the big birds of the scared man. If a fight occurs in the air, it will greatly weaken his combat power, and even be detrimental to him. In the jungle, it's different. He can better hide and unleash sudden attacks to the extreme. This is called leveraging strengths and avoiding weaknesses. The scarred man shouted angrily, "Don't leave, kid." Then he said fiercely, "Cooked ducks can still make you fly." The big bird dived towards Ling Youdao, and in just one go, the paper crane and the big bird landed in the jungle, only 3 or 4 zhang apart. Countless towering trees, 1 foot tall wild grass, verdant and verdant. In the distance, there are many animals, deer chirping and birds chirping incessantly, most of which are wild beasts, but there are also a few demonic beasts. Ling Youdao collected the paper crane, and the Scar Man also collected the big bird. The two stood facing each other 3 or 4 zhang apart. The scarred man looked at the young boy in front of him, raised his big knife, and gave a gloomy smile. "Robbery, if the boy is sensible, just hand over your storage bag and the paper crane you just rode on. Don't resist. If I'm happy, I may save your life." Ling Youdao's eyes flashed with a smile, but his hands kept trembling and his speech stuttered. This Taoist friend, I'm just a casual cultivator, I can't scrape any flesh off my body. You. Please hold up your hand and let me go. Stop talking nonsense, quickly hand over the storage bag, otherwise you'll have to taste the power of Grandpa Scar's water knife. Seeing the young man trembling and taking off the storage bag from his waist, the Scar Man's eyes lit up with pride. "You're a smart kid." At this moment, what he was thinking was not to let Ling Youdao go, but to give him a good time afterwards. "Throw the storage bag over." Ling Youdao's hands and legs trembled violently. "Hurry up, dawdle like a woman." As soon as the words fell, Ling Youdao heard a loud bang and fell to the ground, throwing out the storage bag in his hand. The scarred man cursed and said, "You're a waste. You can even fall down on the road. We cultivators have made you lose face." The scarred great man is like a senior, teaching low-level cultivators a lesson. Ling Youdao lowered his head and pressed his hands on the ground, with green grass covering his cuffs. He watched as the scarred man approached his storage bag step by step, picked up the knife in his hand, and bent down to pick up the storage bag in the grass. Suddenly, Ling Youdao slapped the ground with both hands and stood up abruptly. "Robbery." "What?" The scarred man was startled and withdrew his outstretched hand. However, before the scarred man could grasp the water knife, Ling Youdao waved his sleeve towards him. A black light flashed through, hitting the center of the scar man's eyebrows. "You. Why are you also practicing the 6th level of Qi?" Before the scar man could finish speaking, he died in a fit of anger. Ling Youdao chuckled and said, "I can also be considered as acting on behalf of heaven. I have eradicated a calamity for the cultivation world." He quickly collected his storage bag and the black needle shot into the scar man's brain, then walked to the scar man's body and bent down to reach out and take off the storage bag from his waist. Suddenly, a blue light flew from a distance, and its speed was incredibly fast. The storage bag he had just picked up was knocked down in the grass. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Battle of the Yellow Sparrow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Battle of the Yellow Sparrow. The sudden attack surprised Ling Youdao, realizing that someone was going to do that yellow sparrow. He instantly took out the top-grade magic weapon, the flame sword, from his storage bag, and held it in both hands. His divine sense covered a radius of 2 zhang around his body, and his eyes looked around. The refining of magical tools is the simplest, and alchemists only need to add various micro-prohibitions to them during the refining process, which consumes less spiritual power and is suitable for cultivators during the qi cultivation period to use. Of course, some relatively poor foundation period cultivators also use top-notch magical tools. Surprisingly, there is still a yellow sparrow hidden around. Ling Youdao shouted loudly, "Come out, I have already noticed you." There was no sound around except for a few bird calls. What kind of man is he who hides his head and reveals his tail? If you have any talent, come out and see whose strength is high. Shwa shwa shwa. Ling Youdao was greeted by a blue light shooting from each of the three directions, front, back, and left. He waved his fiery sword and blocked one of the blue lights, making a clang sound. He took a step aside and narrowly avoided the other two blue lights. This time it's troublesome, surprisingly surrounded by people. He looked to the right and said, most likely it was a deliberate cut left by the other party. It turns out that you are a popular anti-robbery person in the local market in recent years. Indeed, you have some skills and can hide your cultivation level. No wonder so many experienced hands are in your hands. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw an old Taoist wearing a feather crown, a grey Taoist robe, and holding a brush walking out of the forest on the right. Ling Youdao immediately turned around and aimed his fiery sword at the newly appeared old Taoist. "Are you also here to rob me?" No, I'm not here to rob you, but to rob the Taoist friend you killed. I'll just say, you're a cultivator who cultivates 8 levels of qi. How could you be interested in me, a little cultivator who cultivates 4 levels of qi? The old Taoist was slightly surprised. You actually saw my realm. If I don't even have this bit of eye power, how can I come out and mess around? The old Taoist chuckled and said, that's right. In the world of cultivation, only high-level cultivators can see the specific realm of low-level cultivators. In the absence of high-level cultivators, low-level cultivators can only see that the opponent's cultivation is higher than their own. Although the old Taoist had made a move before, he deliberately concealed his true strength. Under normal circumstances, opponents would mistake him for a cultivator who practices qi at the 7th level. Ling Youdao is not an inexperienced casual cultivator, but a family cultivator with a background. From a young age, there have been family elders imparting experience, and based on a slight analysis of the current situation, one can guess almost everything. Old Taoist, call out all your accomplices and go up together. The young master is still not afraid. Hee, what a cunning kid, but the old Taoist won't tell you. You can take your time to guess. As expected, the older the person gets, the more refined they become. He immediately understood my purpose. For Ling Youdao, the old Taoist is not the biggest threat, but rather someone who may be hidden in the dark. The previous blue light came from 3 directions simultaneously, which made him mistakenly think that someone was hiding in the dark. The old Taoist saw through his intentions and forced him to allocate some of his energy to pay attention to the surroundings with a slow guess. He is just a cultivator with 6 levels of qi cultivation, and his strength is not as good as that of the old Taoist, so he is not a match for the old Taoist. It's better to start first than to suffer later. Ling Youdao quickly approached the old Taoist with a fiery sword in hand, and stabbed his face with a sword. The old Taoist was not afraid at all, smiled slightly, and shook the top-grade magical tool white whisked dust in his hand. The strands of white dust seemed to be alive, directly entangled with the piercing flame sword. The white dust silk ran along the sword body and quickly wrapped around the hilt. Ah! The old Taoist smiled proudly and said, "Kid, this sword in your hand is good, so it belongs to the old Taoist." The old Taoist thought Ling Youdao would let go of the fiery sword in his hand, but when he was surprised, he shook the handle and the sword instantly turned red. Shoo, shoo, shoo. A burnt smell. The dust silk that wrapped around the sword body was burned off, and Ling Youdao took the opportunity to retract the flame sword. He took a few steps back and looked at the old Taoist with a strange smile on his face. The old Taoist held his white beard and brushed the dust, which had burned several strands of dust. "Oh, hello, my dust," he said after a while. He looked fiercely at Ling Youdao and said, "This white beard dust brush was bought by the old Taoist for a small 800 yuan of lower-grade spirit stone. You actually disabled it, and you must compensate the old Taoist." Ling Youdao said helplessly, "This is not my business. It's your fiery sword that the dust is about to entangle me with. I'm just forced to resist." "Yeah. What a talkative kid. The old Taoist is going to kill you today, for the many fellow disciples besides you." Ling Youdao wiped a cold sweat from his heart and said, "Those who kill and steal treasures are your fellow disciples. Are the people who rob in the cultivation world so rampant?" The old Taoist shook his hand and brushed the dust, then took off the jade hairpin on his head with his right hand. The jade hairpin was suspended in front of him, and the old Taoist continuously injected magic into it. Ling Youdao blocked the old Taoist with a fiery sword in front, watching him cautiously. With the continuous injection of spiritual power, the sense of danger that the jade hairpin gave him became stronger and stronger. "Not good. Go." The old Taoist pointed to Ling Youdao, and his jade hairpin flew out. With a clang sound, it hit the face of the flame sword, and a strong force instantly spread throughout his body through his hands. Ling Youdao retreated more than a foot, leaving 2 deep grooves on the ground. He only felt his inner abdomen swell, and a mouthful of blood had reached his throat, but he forcefully held it back. The jade hairpin shimmered with spiritual light, hovering around the body of the old Taoist. The old Taoist smiled proudly and said, "Young man, you were just considered lucky. I only used 60% of my power. Now I will let you taste the true power of the top-quality magic weapon, the jade hairpin. Need for ultimate magic tools. Not good." Ling Youdao didn't hesitate at all. He lifted his sword with his left hand and patted the storage bag on his waist with his right hand. Suddenly, he had an additional talisman in his hand, injecting a trace of magic into the second-level lower-grade gold shield talisman. The old Taoist collected his white beard and brushed the dust, controlling the jade hairpin with both hands. His magic continuously injected into it, and the spiritual light of the jade hairpin exceeded the previous few points. "Go." With a sound of shudder, the jade hairpin approached Ling Youdao. At this moment, the golden talisman in his hand shone brightly, and a golden cover enveloped him inside. The jade hairpin shone on the golden cover, emitting a series of growling sounds, accompanied by scattered sparks. The old Taoist did not believe in evil and controlled the jade hairpin to pierce the golden cover outside Youdao. Shoo 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 shoo. After a few breaths, the old Taoist's magic injected into the jade hairpin was exhausted, and the jade hairpin automatically flew back into his hands. A casual cultivator with 8 levels of Qi cultivation actually possesses a top-notch magical tool. It seems that you have done a lot of killing and looting. Now your top-notch magical tool is not useful, let's see what other means you have. Upon hearing this, the old Taoist clenched his jade hairpin and stared fiercely at Ling Youdao, wishing to devour him alive. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. After the bottom card, the bottom card. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. After the bottom card, kid, this is what you forced me to do. Ling Youdao was slightly surprised and said, surprisingly, there is a backup. The old Taoist waved his right hand on the storage bag at his waist, and suddenly a talisman appeared in his hand. Go to hell. The talisman was infused with several strands of magic, instantly shining brightly. The old Taoist raised his right hand and released the talisman, shooting towards Ling Youdao. I saw the talisman transform into a nearly zhang-long fire snake, which was bending and circling in the air, flying towards Ling Youdao with a powerful momentum. What? It's actually a second-level superior fire snake talisman. No, it's a defective item, its power only reaches the second level inferior level. The fire snake came rapidly, and he didn't have time to use the other talismans in his storage bag. He could only apply a flowing shield outside his body. The golden shield talisman has been greatly consumed by the old Taoist's top-notch magical tool, and now only has 70% of its power. It cannot withstand the attack of this fire snake talisman. Water can defeat fire, and it should be able to block the remaining power of the fire snake talisman. When Ling Youdao thought this way in his heart, the flying fire snake collided directly with the golden cover, tightly wrapped around it. The two held each other for several breaths, and the golden cover was defeated by the fire snake, beginning to crack and then shattering with a loud bang. The fire snake entwined with Ling Youdao and was blocked by the flowing water shield outside his body. Water and fire mutually consume each other, making a hissing sound. The fire snake consumes a lot to break through the golden cover, with less than 30% of its original power. In the end, it counteracts Ling Youdao's use of the flowing water shield. Kid, without the protection of the golden talisman, how can you still block the old Taoist's jade hairpin? Speaking, the old Taoist injected a few strands of magic into the jade hairpin again, and the jade hairpin emitted an emerald green light. Looking at Ling Youdao standing there foolishly, the old Taoist thought of the scene of him being penetrated by the jade hairpin, and a proud smile couldn't help but appear on his face. Go! Ling Youdao was not scared out of his wits, but hesitated. Forget it, let's start with the second level lower grade gold shield talisman that the old man gave me last time. The second level medium grade gold shield talisman that the old man gave me last time is a bit wasteful to use here. Thinking of this, Ling Youdao immediately took out the second level lower grade gold shield talisman and triggered it before the jade hairpin could shoot. The imagined scene did not appear, and the jade hairpin shot onto the golden cover, emitting a series of growls. The smile on the old Taoist's face instantly turned into shock. What? There's also a golden shield talisman. Ling Youdao saw the old Taoist's eyes wide open, his mouth also open, and his expression on his face was very exaggerated. He casually pinched a magic spell, and a wooden thorn shot towards the side of the jade hairpin. The jade hairpin inserted a golden cover and shot onto the trunk of a large tree behind him. The big tree shook for a while, and a bird's nest fell down. Several bird eggs fell on small stones and shattered, quickly covering it with a layer of leaves. Ling Youdao will no longer let the jade hairpin consume the power of the golden shield talisman as he did just now, so he cleverly shot away the jade hairpin with a wooden thorn. Old Taoist, I have disappointed you. I still have a golden shield talisman. Looking at the old Taoist with a pale face across from him, Ling Youdao chuckled. Damn it, why does this kid still have a golden talisman? If he leaves now, it would be too bad. If we continue to fight this kid, maybe we can make up for the loss. He not only wants to recover his losses, but also worries that letting Ling Youdao go will cause trouble for himself. This is not a difficult thing to guess. Ling Youdao, at such a young age, has a cultivation of 6 levels of Qi cultivation, as well as top-grade magical tools and several second-order talismans. A young cultivator with such cultivation and a rich family background must be a descendant of a foundation-building family in the Luyuan Islands, and their status is not low. Most of them have foundation-building cultivators as their backers. The old Taoist is just a casual cultivator with 8 levels of Qi cultivation. The foundation-building family is a huge creature for him. If he offends such a force, he can only escape from the Luyuan Islands. If he doesn't want to escape from the Luyuan Islands, then he has only one choice, which is to kill the boy in front of him. The old Taoist extended his left hand and shot the jade hairpin into the tree trunk, which was then returned to his hand and placed in the storage bag around his waist. Kid, the old Taoist did take a wrong look today and offended someone who shouldn't have been offended. In my line of work, I don't have the ability or the courage to show my cards. You just realize now that you've taken a blind eye, I'm afraid it's too late. But you must die here today. Ling Youdao thought that the old Taoist had become sensible and knew that he had offended someone he shouldn't have, so he prepared to retreat. Unexpectedly, the next moment there was a 180-degree turn in the conversation, and it was necessary to kill him. Judging from the serious demeanor of the old Taoist, it doesn't seem like he's joking. As the saying goes, taking action first is the strongest. Ling Youdao is not a gentleman. Besides, even a gentleman wouldn't do this. Seeing that the old Taoist had once again taken out a talisman, he pinched the formula with both hands, and the nearby soil flipped slightly. The roots of several large trees wrapped around the old Taoist from the soil. Faced with the incoming tree roots, the old Taoist didn't care at all. With a stomp of his left foot, the soft soil around him became hard, and the tree roots that were shuttling through the soil were frozen and couldn't move forward any further. Humph, a little trick of carving insects. Ling Youdao didn't expect those tree roots to work either. Faced with the Taoist's talisman attack, he still chose to defend and applied a flowing water shield outside his body. The talisman in the hands of the old Taoist is still a second-level top-grade fire snake talisman, but it is a defective product and still only reaches the power of a second-level lower-grade talisman. At the moment when the talisman was thrown out, a nearly 10-foot-long fire snake coiled away, tightly wrapped around the golden cover previously. The jade hairpin could not even consume 10% of the power of the golden shield, so when the fire snake broke through the golden shield, it was also on the verge of dissipating at any time. When it collided with the flowing water shield, it turned into sparks. "Kid, what else are you going to do this time?" Suddenly, the old Taoist's eyes were filled with shock and anger. "Your family sells talismans. Over and over again, where do you get so many defensive talismans?" His heart is dripping with blood. If he had known that Ling Youdao had so many defense talismans, he would never have been bored. Although the old Taoist was angry in his heart, he remained calm. He looked at the golden shield in front of Ling Youdao, which was even more solid and powerful than the previous two golden covers. Surprisingly, it's a second-level intermediate gold shield talisman. This time, it really kicked the iron plate. Faced with Ling Youdao, who had a turtle shell, he suddenly felt a sense of retreat. Without saying a word, he turned around and ran away. "Don't leave." He burst out laughing and used his lightness technique to chase after him. He always maintains a certain distance from the old Taoist and attacks him with all his might from behind. With the protection of the golden shield talisman, Ling Youdao hardly needs to worry about the old Taoist's attack, all he needs is a strong attack. The old Taoist's heart was filled with anger. A cultivator who has practiced 8 levels of Qi in front of a cultivator who has only practiced 6 levels of Qi can only passively be beaten. What kind of world is this? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Harvest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Harvest. Although the old Taoist was a cultivator who practiced 8 levels of Qi, the spiritual power in the elixir field was more powerful than that of Ling Youdao, who practiced 6 levels of Qi. However, he continuously used the second-level lower-level fire snake talisman and the top-notch magic weapon, the jade hairpin, and his spiritual power had already reached its limit. On the other hand, Ling Youdao, after taking a first-order medium-grade Qi-enhancing pill, the spiritual power in the pill field was filled, and he continuously cast various spells, launching a brutal and inhumane bombardment against the old Taoist from behind. The speed of the old Taoist became slower and slower, and Ling Youdao, who used the light body technique, easily caught up with him. At this moment, the old Taoist's robe was already torn and had a burnt smell. "You don't have the strength anymore, do you?" The old Taoist took a few breaths and said, "Taoist friend, this time I was blindsided and offended you. I admit to being a loser. Taoist friend, if he is willing to let the old Taoist live, he will be rewarded." Ling Youdao couldn't help but laugh and said, "Old Taoist, your spiritual power is depleted now. For me, it's like fish and meat on a chopping board. Even your little life belongs to me, let alone the treasures in your storage bag. Besides, as a casual cultivator with 8 levels of Qi cultivation, you actually have 2 second-level lower-level fire snake talismans and a top-notch magical tool. You must have done a lot of killing and treasure hunting activities. If I let you go today, I don't know how many Dao friends will die in your hands someday. Now I will act on behalf of heaven and eradicate your evil in the cultivation world. Daoist friend, what you did was also murder. Ling Youdao didn't give the old Taoist an opportunity to explain, so he stabbed his body with a sword. The blazing sword released a flame that covered his body, burning only ashes in an instant. He collected the flame sword, picked up the storage bag of the old Taoist and carefully placed it in his arms. I killed people like you, can they be the same? After speaking, he turned around and left here. Soon. Ling Youdao returned to the place where he had killed the Scar Man, collected his top-grade magic weapon, the water-cutting blade, and found the storage bag that had been shot away by the old Taoist in the grass. He walked up to the body of the scarred man and found a spirit beast bag around his waist. Then a fireball was placed on the body of the Scar Man, and under the blazing fire, the Scar Man's body was also burned to ashes. The fight just now must have caught the attention of nearby cultivators. Leave here first, find a safe place, and then check the harvest. After speaking, he jumped up the big tree in depth, stepping on the branches and jumping into the distance. After half a cup of tea, several late-stage cultivators arrived here one after another. Looking at everything in front of them, someone couldn't help but say, is it because the cultivators during the foundation building period are fighting here? It's not like that. It's probably because both sides in the battle used second-level talismans, and there were more than one, that caused such great damage. Let's go. Cultivators with a large number of second-level talismans during the Qi cultivation period are not something we can afford to provoke. On an unnamed island 30 miles southwest of Red Shrimp Island, Ling Youdao set up a warning and prohibition around him, then leaned against a stone and took out the storage bag and spirit beast bag of the Scar Man. The Scar Great Han has died, and his divine sense imprint attached to the storage bag and spirit beast bag has been easily erased by Ling Youdao. He took out all the things from the storage bag, and after some gentle tapping, there were 180 inferior spirit stones, a first-level medium-grade small shield magical tool, a white jade bottle, and 3 yellow bud pills inside. Huanya Dan is a first-order top-grade pill, which is mainly made from the first-order top-grade spiritual medicine Huanya grass, combined with 3 other first-order spiritual medicines. During the Qi cultivation period, cultivators taking this pill can accelerate the conversion of spiritual energy into spiritual power. But this pill is expensive and is mostly used by cultivators in the later stages of Qi cultivation. Immediately after, he released the big bird from the Scar Han spirit beast bag, and as soon as it was released, it wanted to escape. I saw the tree roots and green vines rising from the ground, tightly wrapped around the big bird's 2 feet, and the big bird struggled hard. In no time, a few green vines entwined the big bird tightly. Just listen to the sound of bang, a bird tied like a zongzi fell on the beach. The next moment, Ling Youdao had a pomelo-sized fireball in his right hand, which he threw and hit the bird's head. The big bird died before it could let out a mournful cry, and could not die again. He found a black demon pill from the body of the big bird, first-level lower-grade water attribute demon pill. Including the top-notch magical tool, water-cutting knife, this person's wealth is still impressive. Immediately, he took out the storage bag of the old Taoist and easily erased the imprint of divine consciousness on it, taking out all the contents inside. After careful tapping, there were a total of 320 lower-grade spirit stones and 2 upper-grade magical tools. One was the white beard brush used by the old Taoist before, and the other was a square brick magical tool. Then came the top-notch magical tool, the jade hairpin. Ling Youdao also valued this magical tool the most because it was a water attribute top-notch magical tool that was just right for him to use. In addition to these things, there are 2 jade bottles. The first jade bottle contains 2 yellow bud pills. When he opened the second jade bottle, he was stunned and exclaimed with a shocked expression, This is actually a first-order top-grade pill for washing marrow. No wonder he was so shocked and happy. It should be because the wash marrow pill can help cultivators break through the realm during the chi cultivation period, and it also has the effect of washing their qualifications. During the chi cultivation period, cultivators who take the first wash marrow pill have the best effect, with almost a 10% chance of breaking through a small realm. When taking the second pill, it is only half the effect of the first pill, and the third pill is half the effect of the second pill. Taking the wash marrow pill afterwards will have no effect. The main medicine for refining the wash marrow pill is the second-level lower-grade spiritual medicine, wash marrow grass. Wash marrow grass is one of the important auxiliary spiritual medicines for refining the building foundation pill, so few forces will use wash marrow grass to refine the wash marrow pill. Even if the wash marrow pill is refined, it is controlled by various forces, and only a small amount of wash marrow pill can flow out. So the price of the wash marrow pill is very high, comparable to a top-notch magical tool, and it has always been high. The Ling family of Cangli would refine a furnace of wash marrow pills every 5 or 6 years, with only 2 or 3 pills produced. Once refined, they were strictly controlled by the family. Even though Ling Youdao had a grandfather who built a foundation, he had never taken the wash marrow pill. He has been trapped in the middle stage of chi cultivation for almost a year, and if he follows the normal cultivation speed, it will take him at least 2 more years to break through to the later stage of chi cultivation. But with the wash marrow pill, it's different. He can break through to the later stage of chi cultivation at the fastest speed, with almost no mistakes. Ling Youdao imposed a new restriction on the jade bottle containing the wash marrow pill, tightly gripping it with his right hand, and couldn't help but laugh out loud. Great, just this one wash marrow pill won't waste the previously consumed talismans, and there's still room for profit. Ling Youdao and the Scar Great Han storage bags are only medium-grade magical tools, while the storage bags of the old Taoist are top-grade magical tools. He spent half an hour attaching his divine sense imprint to the storage bag of the old Taoist. Ling Youdao put 500 pieces of inferior spirit stones from the robbery, 2 jade bottles containing 5 Huanya pills and Shisui pills, the top-grade magic weapon by Yuzan, and the demon pill of Danyao into the storage bag of the old Taoist. Later, he put the top-grade magic weapons, such as the flame sword, the clear water shield, the black needle, the paper crane, a first-order top-grade earth escape talisman, a first-order top-grade water escape talisman, and the clothes he had worn in his storage bag into the old Taoist storage bag, and hung them around his waist. Finally, he put the things of the Scar Great Man, the white beard of the old Taoist, and the brick artifact into the Scar Great Man's storage bag, along with his own empty storage bag, into his arms. He first changed his clothes back on his body, then released the paper crane and jumped up. The paper crane took him flying towards the southwest direction. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. The Great Unfair Sun. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. The Great Unfair Sun. Before the sun set at sea level, Ling Youdao returned to Cangli Island. He went to the Lingyao garden and told Ling Yuansheng the news of his safe return. Looking at his grandson in front of him, Ling Yuan said with a cold face, "What's wrong? He's coming back so soon." He still has confidence in Ling Yudao's safety. Over the years, he was given several second-level talismans from before and after. As long as the foundation building cultivator did not make a move, relying on those second-level talismans would still be more than enough to save his life. Besides, how could a grand foundation building cultivator care about him for no reason, as a small 4-level cultivator of Qi cultivation? So Ling Youdao went out to Red Shrimp Island to experience, which is quite safe. Ling Youdao chuckled and awkwardly scratched his head. My grandson missed you, so he came back early. Ling Yuanqing smiled and said, "Don't be stingy." Immediately, he pretended to wave his hand impatiently and said, "Since you're back, go back quickly." Upon hearing this, Ling Youdao respectfully said, "Son, please follow your orders and get out of here." As he spoke, he circled out of the medicine house, looking at Ling Yuanqing with a burst of laughter. "This stinky kid." He shook his head helplessly. After leaving the Lingyao garden, Ling Youdao went to the Shangong Hall located in the middle of Qingsang Mountain. Shangong Hall is the place where Cangli Lingshi releases tasks. Once the tasks released by Shangong Hall are completed, corresponding good deeds will be obtained. Good deeds in the Ling family of Cangli are like spirit stones in the cultivation world. However, within the Ling family of Cangli, the role of spirit stones cannot be compared to good deeds, as many important cultivation resources can only be exchanged for good deeds. The reason why Ling Youdao wants to go to the Shangong Hall is to dispose of the stolen goods in the storage bag. Soon, he arrived at the Shangong Hall. The Shangong Hall consists of 3 tall attic buildings adjacent to each other. The attic on the left is where tasks are issued, their completion is checked, and corresponding Shangong is distributed. The middle attic is the place for acquisition, and the right attic is the place for sale. You can use spirit stones or consume family virtues. Under a big tree outside the Shangong Hall, an old man with white hair was lying on it. Ling Youdao walked forward and arched his hand, saying, "Youdao has met the 8th uncle." Upon hearing this, the old man opened his eyes and looked at Ling Youdao with a smile, saying, "So it's Youdao. Are you almost an adult?" The old man's name is Ling Jiran, the only 3 remaining cultivators of the Jie generation in the Ling family of Cangli who built the foundation. Well, there are still 2 more years. Practicing the 4 levels of Qi has lowered your cultivation level. Don't be lazy. Ling Youdao said awkwardly, "You must remember the teachings of your 8th uncle." Ling Yuanqing's alchemy skills were learned from Ling Jiehao, a cultivator of the 2nd generation of the Ling family. Ling Jiehao was Ling Jiran's elder brother, so the 7th and 2nd families were closer, and Ling Jiran asked him so much. "Alright, you must have something to do when you come to the Shangong Hall. Go ahead and don't disturb the old man. I'll rest now." After speaking, he closed his eyes. "Yes." Ling Youdao respectfully responded before walking towards the middle attic. In the deepest part of the attic, there is a long counter, and behind it stands a middle-aged man. This person is a collateral descendant of the Ling family of Cangli, named Ling Bao. When he saw Ling Youdao walking in, his face burst into laughter. "Youdao, what treasure did Elder 7 send you to consignment again?" "Uncle Clan, I've come all this way, and you can't even part with a cup of tea." Ling Baoi patted his head and awkwardly said, "Look at me, Youdao, sit down, I'll go make you a cup of tea right now." After finishing speaking, Ling Youdao ran to brew tea and smiled, casually finding a seat to sit down. Quickly, Ling Bao placed a cup of Ling Cha on the table. He chuckled and said, "Youdao, you have tea first, let's talk slowly." Ling Youdao picked up his teacup and took a sip of Ling Cha before cautiously saying, "I've brought a lot of good things this time." Ling Baodun was overjoyed and said, "That would be great." Ling Bao, who had regained his composure for a while, suddenly thought of a question, "By the way, Youdao, I haven't heard of Elder 7 going out recently." The old man is the 7th elder of the family, a cultivator in the middle of the foundation building period. He has been out of the island before, and even my own grandson doesn't know. How could you possibly know? Upon careful consideration, Ling Bao was indeed right. If the elder Zhang Qigu had left the island, other families would have known about it in the first place. That's right. Immediately asked, Elder 7 went out of the island and robbed again. Ling Youdao covered his mouth and whispered, "Shoo, keep it quiet. You can let go of this matter. The old man is at least the 7th elder of the family. He doesn't want face, does he?" If the news of his acting on behalf of heaven spreads, how should the members of the family discuss him? Only the old man and you and me know about this matter. When he investigates it, I don't care. At most, a few months of confinement will pass. But you're different. Just give you a trap and you'll never get up in your lifetime. Ling Bao was startled by these words and broke out in a cold sweat. He nodded incessantly, and Ling Youdao finally let him go. Youdao, thank you for your great kindness without hesitation. Ling Bao looked at Ling Youdao and bowed his hand solemnly, saying. Ling Youdao said somewhat unnaturally, Uncle Zhu, where are these words? What I'm saying is true. If I miss out on the matter of Elder 7, I'm afraid I won't be able to survive. Upon hearing these words, Ling Youdao felt it was necessary to maintain the image of Ling Yuansheng. Uncle Clan, you're serious. The old man is not the kind of person you imagine, he just transferred you out at most. Ling Bao waved his hand and said, Youdao, you're still young and don't know the dangers of the cultivation world. I also think our relationship is good, so I dare to say that in front of you. Ling Youdao immediately interrupted Ling Bao's words, all right, we won't say that anymore. He felt that if Ling Bao continued to say so, his grandfather would really become an unforgivable villain. Ling Bao waved his hand and said, I won't say it anymore. This is not a big deal either. As long as you don't speak out, it's okay, and don't record these things in the ledger. Take a look at how many spirit stones these few items are worth. As he spoke, he took out all the things from the Scar Man's storage bag. Ling Bao picked up the 4 magic tools on the table and carefully examined them one by one. This knife is a water attribute top-grade magic tool, which can be sold for 800 pieces of lower-grade spirit stones. The brush dust is a wood attribute top-grade magic tool, which is slightly damaged. Moreover, there are not many cultivators using this type of magic tool, and it can be sold for 750 pieces of lower-grade spirit stones. As for the remaining 2 intermediate defense artifacts, their appearance is good, and each one can be sold for 500 yuan as a lower-grade spirit stone. This storage bag is also included. The storage bag for medium-grade magic tools is worth 150 pieces of inferior spirit stones, totaling 2,700 pieces of inferior spirit stones. Ling Youdao nodded and said, according to the old rules, I'll take 90% and you'll take 10%. If you can sell it higher, the extra part will be yours. Ling Bao collected 5 magical tools and said with a smile, don't worry, when you sell them, I'll call you over. Ling Youdao nodded and then stood up to say goodbye. What's going on? We're done with the matter now. Ling Jiran closed his eyes and asked. Well, it's already done. Youdao, let's go first. Go ahead. Cangli biography has been signed. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Sister.in.law. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Sister.in.law Ling Yuansheng, who was far away in the Lingyao garden, had no idea that he had been used by Ling Youdao as a shield to deceive Ling Bao. After leaving the Shandong Hall, Ling Youdao returned to the 7-room courtyard. 2 little kids were chasing and playing around in the yard. When Ling Youdao walked over, he smiled and called out, "Third uncle. Where's your father?" These 2 little brats are the 4th generation of the Ling family in Cangli, the son of Ling Yuwei, the cousin of Ling Youdao. The eldest son is Ling Renxin, who is 8 years old this year, and the second son is Ling Renyi, who is also 8 years old this year. The 2 brothers are of the same father but different mothers. Ling Renxin said, "Dad is out doing things for the family." Ling Renyi then said, "My aunt is not at home either. She went to the island and just left yesterday. I haven't asked yet." Ling Renyi said seriously, "Uncle San will definitely ask." Ling Youdao reached out and scraped Ling Renyi's small nose, then smiled and said, "You little clever ghost. Uncle, grandpas, parents, and aunts are not at home. Can you take us out to play? Ling Youdao shook his head and said, I can't do it recently. Third uncle needs to practice in seclusion. I will also cultivate immortality in the future. Ling Renxin followed closely and said, Third uncle, I will also cultivate immortality in the future. Xiner, come back for dinner soon. Ling Youdao heard the sound and saw two dignified women walking over. Sister-in-law. These two are the biological mothers of Ling Renxin and Ling Renyi, and Ling Youwei's concubine. They are a pair of sisters. They don't have spiritual roots, so they can't cultivate immortals. The reason why they can live on the top of Qingcang Mountain is that Ling Renxin and Ling Renyi are too young and need someone to take care of them. Ling Youdao sometimes sighs that although the two concubines of the eldest brother are just ordinary people, they are also very beautiful. The key is a pair of sisters, Hua. It's really a pleasure to have this company in the dead of night. Why bother yourself? When he should enjoy it, he should still enjoy it, but the thought of this being a world of the fittest instantly dispelled these thoughts. The so-called gentle hometown is a hero's tomb, and he doesn't want to give up hundreds of years for decades. Fairy, we sisters can't afford to be your sister. Law. Ling Youdao just smiled. Although the two sisters are Ling Youwei's concubine room, they are still far from Ling Youdao's identity. He is an outstanding young man of the 21st century who comes from the earth and is accustomed to monogamy and everyone is equal. He will only respect the two sisters a little. If someone else changes his mind, he will not look at the two sisters squarely. Besides, the sisters also help him to collect spiritual fruits, so he has a good attitude towards the sisters. Two little guys, hurry up and go eat with your mother. The two sisters took their son's hands, smiled and nodded to Ling Youdao, and then led Ling Renxin and Ling Renyi away. This was just a small episode for him, and he quickly returned to his small yard. This is a quadrangle. In the middle of the courtyard, a first-class topaz snow pear tree is planted. The friars in the later period of Qi training eat the pears from the topaz snow pear tree, which can increase their spiritual power. Every year, the topaz snow pear tree can produce 1 pear, or 17 or 8 pears at most, or 7 or 8 pears at least. Each topaz snow pear can sell 5 inferior spiritual stones. It can be considered as one of the legacies left by Ling Dingfang and Wang Yunhui to Ling Youdao. At this moment, there were already more than 10 green pears hanging on the tree, only the size of eggs. A gentle breeze blew, and the leaves rustled, causing each green pear to sway left and right. Ling Youdao carefully counted and confirmed that there were 12 pears on the tree, which was not good, but not bad either. 21 flowers bloomed earlier, but only 12 pears were produced. It was too careless to focus on cultivation and forget to pollinate. This year, Ling Youdao left his yard when the topaz snow pear tree blossomed and practiced in the cave, but failed to break through to the later stage of Qi training. 10 days ago, he ended his seclusion and tried again next to the jade pool, but still couldn't successfully break through to the later stage of Qi cultivation. So, this is the first time he has returned since leaving this yard this year. Hey, it's better to be content. Fortunately, there are bees coming in to collect pollen. Otherwise, there might not be even 5 pears. Suddenly, Lin Youdao noticed a white flesh worm slowly wriggling on a green-skinned pear. The pear had a small gap, and the green-white flesh was exposed to the air. How could that be so unreasonable? I've only grown 12 pears this year, and you little one dares to steal them. Do you really think I'm easy to bully? I saw him jump up, his fingers touching the surface of the green pear, and the wriggling white flesh worm was sandwiched between his fingers. He looked at the white meat bug in front of him and said, "My food can't be eaten for free, it will come at a cost." As he spoke, he flicked his finger and the white meat bug was ejected from the small courtyard. Ling Youdao wrapped the gap of the green pear with a group of spiritual power to avoid direct contact between the flesh and the air, and to prevent the excessive loss of the essence of the topaz snow pear. In a few days, the missing flesh of the green pear will grow out and become a complete topaz snow pear again. There is definitely more than that white carnivorous insect on this tree. Maybe that white carnivorous insect has already laid eggs. This topaz snow pear tree will bring him 70 or 80 pieces of inferior spirit stones every year. He doesn't want to suffer huge losses because of his carelessness. Ling Youdao pinched the formula with both hands and applied a deworming technique to the whole topaz snow pear tree. Then he saw some insects climbing down the trunk to the ground, and some directly fell down. Even the insect eggs on the tree were affected by the deworming technique just now, and they can no longer be hatched. I watched 7 or 8 white meat worms wriggle their bodies and crawl away from the topaz snow pear tree. Ling Youdao developed an invisible aura on his body, which pressed against the 7 or 8 white meat insects. The white meat insects had no resistance and only heard a bang sound, and the 7 or 8 white meat insects burst out in unison. Then, he applied insect repellency to the whole yard to ensure that the 12 topaz snow pear were safe and mature when he was in seclusion. He came home this time for 2 purposes. One is to see the topaz snow pear in the yard, and the other is to make some preparations for the late period of closing the door to break through chi training. When everything was ready, he left his own yard and then blocked the entire yard with a formation. Those 2 sister-in-law were able to get into the yard safely by virtue of the jade charm to help him pick up the topaz snow pear, while others had to break the array if they wanted to enter the yard. The spiritual energy in Ling Youdao's yard is also very strong, but it cannot be compared to the spiritual energy concentration in the cultivation cave. This breakthrough opportunity is very rare, and he must be fully prepared to ensure that he will not fail due to external factors. So he chose to break through in the cultivation cave, and the entire 7-room also opened up 5 cultivation caves, 1 for the foundation building cultivators, and 4 for the Qi cultivation cultivators, which belonged to Ling Yuansheng and his 4 sons respectively. Ling Youdao inherited the cave of his father Ling Dingfang. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Breaking through the 7 layers of Qi cultivation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Breaking through the 7 layers of Qi cultivation. Inside a cultivation cave in the 7 rooms of Qingcang Mountain, Ling Youdao sat cross-legged on a cattail. He hugged Yuan Shi, his eyes slightly narrowed, and the spiritual energy in the entire cave was pulled by him, gathering around his body, forming a visible halo spiritual mist. The realm of a cultivator, from low to high, can be divided into Qi cultivation, foundation building, golden pill, elemental baby, and spiritual transformation. At this time, he is in the transitional stage from Qi cultivation level 6 to Qi cultivation level 7. If he crosses it, he will be a late-stage cultivator, but if he cannot cross it, he will still be a mid-stage cultivator. Qi cultivators mainly cultivate the elixir field. Every time they break through a small realm, the elixir field will increase, allowing them to store more spiritual power. When practicing normally, it is to absorb the spiritual energy from the outside world and strengthen the spiritual power in the elixir field. But often, only an extremely small portion of the spiritual energy absorbed into the body can be transformed into spiritual power, ultimately integrating into the spiritual power cluster in the elixir field. The better the spiritual root qualification, the more spiritual energy a cultivator can convert into spiritual power, rapidly expanding the spiritual power cluster in the elixir field. In this way, cultivators with better spiritual root qualifications naturally have faster cultivation speed. When the spiritual power cluster in the Dantian reaches its maximum storage limit, no matter how much cultivation is done, it cannot increase the spiritual power cluster, which is the so-called bottleneck. Only by expanding the Dantian can we further expand the spiritual power group, which is the breakthrough of the realm. To expand Dantian, it is usually necessary to constantly saturate or even load Dantian, gradually breaking through the Dantian barrier. Over time, the Dantian barrier will relax, and then take the opportunity to expand Dantian in one fell swoop. A cultivator with better spiritual root qualifications can convert more spiritual energy into spiritual power at once, and can also make the dantian more saturated in that instant, thereby unleashing a stronger impact. In this way, breaking through the bottleneck is naturally easier. The wash marrow pill has two functions. One is to cleanse the meridians of cultivators, and even broaden them, so that cultivators can convert more spiritual energy into spiritual power. This is why the wash marrow pill can increase the qualifications of cultivators. Secondly, the wash marrow pill can release a large amount of spiritual power. Simply guide these spiritual powers into the elixir field, and use this spiritual power to break through the barriers of the elixir field, thereby expanding the elixir field and breaking through bottlenecks. The main medicine for refining the wash marrow pill is the second-level lower-grade spiritual medicine wash marrow grass, as well as the second-level lower-grade spiritual medicine Ling grass, which is about 1 carat, and the first-level upper-grade spiritual medicine, the lotus flower of the water lily. The function of Zisukeo is to cleanse meridians, remove impurities from the body, and allow the spiritual power released by Zisuiden to flow better in the body. 100-year-old gathering spirit grass only has the value of a second-level lower-grade spiritual medicine, while a 100-year-old gathering spirit grass has the value of an ordinary first-level upper-grade spiritual medicine. The medicinal age of the gathering spirit grass should not be too high. The spiritual power of the wash marrow pill refined too high is irritable, and the meridians and elixir fields of chi cultivators cannot suppress the spiritual power released. It not only fails to improve qualifications and break through bottlenecks, but also damages the meridians and elixir fields. Similarly, the medicinal age of the gathering spirit grass should not be too low, otherwise the spiritual power released by the refined wash marrow pill will have no power and cannot help chi cultivators break through bottlenecks. Although it is only a concentrated spiritual herb, the spiritual power released by the refined wash marrow pill is still somewhat irritable, while the lotus flower of water lilies can make the spiritual power released by the wash marrow pill milder and make the release process last longer. Ling Youdao is trying to break through with his own strength, and as for the essence washing pill in the storage bag, it must be used at the best time. Obviously, it is not the time yet. The spiritual energy hovering around his body was constantly absorbed by him and then released, and Dantian remained in a state of load. As time passed, he repeatedly absorbed spiritual energy and transformed it into spiritual power, forcing the extra spiritual power to forcefully squeeze into the elixir field and continuously break through the barriers of the elixir field. After half a year of hard work, his Dantian barrier has finally loosened. Ling Youdao's face lit up with joy. It's time to use that wash marrow pill. He had tried 3 times before to break through the bottleneck in the later stage of chi cultivation, but each time he was on the verge of success. Seeing that the Dantian barrier had loosened, he could never take that final step. Without hesitation, he immediately took out the jade bottle containing the wash marrow pill, wiped off the seal on the bottle mouth, and took out the milky white wash marrow pill and put it in his mouth. The wash marrow pill flowed into his abdomen, and the medicinal power slowly dissipated. Ling Youdao's divine consciousness covered his entire body, and every move of the wash marrow pill was clearly visible to him. The body size of the pill gradually decreased, and there were many scattered spiritual powers in the abdomen. He guided these scattered spiritual powers to slowly gather together, forming a spiritual force. Subsequently, he controlled the flow of this spiritual power towards the meridians. Whenever this spiritual power flowed through a certain section of the meridians, he felt a slight sense of expansion in that section, and then felt that the meridians became smoother and more relaxed than before. This spiritual power flowed through all the meridians of the body and eventually entered the Dantian. Dantian was already in a saturated state, and with the integration of this spiritual power, he was instantly in a state of burden. Ling Youdao only felt a sense of expansion in his lower abdomen. When the first spiritual power flows through the meridians, the wash marrow pill in the abdomen continues to release scattered spiritual power. Ling Youdao divided half of his mind and focused on the situation in the Dantian, while the other half focused on the surroundings of the wash marrow pill and began to guide the scattered spiritual power to converge together again, then flowing all the meridians throughout his body into the Dantian. After the second wave of spiritual power flows through the meridians, they become smoother and more relaxed than before. After merging into Dantian, the sense of expansion that Dantian gives Ling Youdao becomes stronger and stronger. The wash marrow pill is still continuously releasing scattered spiritual power, and Ling Youdao is repeating the process of gathering scattered spiritual power, guiding it to flow through the meridians of the body and then converge into the elixir field. Every time spiritual power flows through, the meridians become more comfortable than before. With more times, the meridians have been widened slightly, which made Ling Youdao very happy in his heart. The Dantian gave him a feeling of exploding, and as the spiritual power inside increased, the Dantian barrier shattered with a loud bang. The soft Dantian barrier hidden inside the hard Dantian barrier was revealed, instantly expanding under the pressure of spiritual power in the Dantian. When the soft Dantian barrier is released, it will harden again in a very short time, and then grow again within the hard Dantian barrier. So, the process of expanding the elixir field with spiritual power is only in an instant. If the pressure in the elixir field becomes stronger at that moment, then the elixir field will be expanded even greater. On the contrary, at that moment, the pressure in Dantian is relatively small, and the expanded Dantian is correspondingly smaller. This is why among cultivators in the same realm, some people have stronger spiritual power. Of course, at that moment, the pressure in Dantian cannot be too great, otherwise it will break through the soft Dantian barrier, and it will be difficult for Dantian to store spiritual power. The efficacy of the wash marrow pill has not yet been exhausted, and Ling Youdao uses the remaining efficacy of the wash marrow pill to cleanse the body's meridians and stabilize the realm. End of this chapter.